Today I'm going to be continuing working on this wasteland, this desolate dystopian wasteland that surrounds my cyberpunk city. Underneath my pillagers, we have a cyberpunk style slums. Up here we're going to be having the mid-tier of the city, and above that we're going to have even more. But before we can get to any of that fun stuff, we need to get this wasteland finished off by adding in a whole bunch more buildings, a huge big old magnet crane that can take containers from our train station and move them over there, and even some broken down old flying drones. That's because in the last episode I was asking you guys whether we should have a big old magnet crane that can move the containers from one place to another, or just a bunch of forklift trucks whizzing around that would do the same sort of thing. And you guys all voted for magnet crane, but that magnet crane's going to have to be mighty long and large in order to be able to stretch all the way over to here. And in order to get these containers, maybe even up to that first plate where the people up there would be able to use the contents of them. And I got a bunch more comments saying, why don't I have flying vehicles down here? Well, there's a reason I didn't want to add flying vehicles in the wasteland, and that's because I'm trying to create a bit of a hierarchy. This wasteland is a dystopian nightmare of a mess. It's old, it's full of diesel churning, rusted old vehicles and things, basically broken down. As we get to the slums, things are a slightly more futuristic with the neon glowing signs and factories and things like that, but it's still a bit of a wasteland. It's still very dystopian, still very dirty and broken down. And as we go up the levels, I want it to get more modern, more interesting and more futuristic. So this next level would absolutely have like hover cars and vehicles flying around, and the next level would even have maybe flying cars and things flying around. And of course I want to have like floating monorails and trains and things going around in the higher parts of the cities. So I took some time and decided, why don't we have those drones that built the old platform back all those years ago, repurposed and working in this scrapyard. And even though they're unreliable and broken and don't really help all that much anymore, we can utilize those to do a few little jobs like shifting containers around and moving things from our big waste pile that's going to be over here to the smelteries and recycle stations and stuff like that. But what are all of those things gonna look like? Well, I've already designed a bunch of stuff in my creative test world as usual, and I think we're going to start with the big old magnet crane, because I want to get the train station area finished off, because again, in the last video I made this big old train depot and I absolutely love it. It's wonderful. But it's got a hole in it, and that needs to change. So I've thrown down a couple of schematic cannons on top of these containers that are going to be blasted in the crane that I've designed, and that's because it's in two parts. We've got a lower part of the crane, which I'm going to actually have to do some work on myself in survival, and then the upper part. And the other part is going to be animated. But before we can do anything, we're going to need to see what materials we're going to need to build this, and it looks like we're going to need a whole bunch. So I'm going to pop my backpacks down in front of this one to start with, as this will be doing the lower part, throw in a clipboard and see exactly what we've already got. And we've got a bunch of the stuff, but I'm still gonna need a few bits and bobs to finish that one off. Mainly this yellow stone metal. And I'm going to be using a bunch of stone metal, in particular this yellow stone metal, because it's got a nice sort of grungy, grimy look, as if it is like a working material that's covered in dirt and rust and stuff. I really like that block. And in order to make stone metal, we need azurine, and we can just make a bunch of this and then just dye it, but we can also make it pre-dyed just like this. Now, I do have an automated dyeing system in order to do that, but I've also got an absolutely ridiculous amount of yellow dye. So let's just throw a whole bunch of that in there. Yeah, and then a whole bunch more. And hopefully that'll be plenty of the yellow stone metal to be getting on with. Yeah, now I hardly need anything at all. Barrel, chest, an analog lever. That's easy enough. I'm gonna need a bunch more copycat ladders. I need a bunch of copycat vertical stairs. I need a bunch of industrial iron bars so I can make some industrial iron catwalk railing. I need to say good morning to Dave. And I need one polished blackstone button. And now I just need a little bit of redstone and a step lever. Let's just make a bunch of those. And now we should have everything we need except for one thing, which is the waxed oxidized copper lanterns, which I never actually use. That's just a bug with the schematic cannons because it thinks that the wall hanging lanterns are copper ones, but they're not. So we don't need to put those in. So this cannon is ready to go. So I'm going to get this one blasted in, then I'm going to do the same thing and blast that one in. But instead of going through all of that bit by bit with you guys, I'm just going to do the whole thing as a time lapse, including me actually designing the crane. Let's do this. It's moving! We have a functioning magnet crane. And I use the word functioning loosely. It literally just swings backwards and forwards using a sequence gear shift down there. It doesn't actually pick up any containers or drop them off, but the fact that it's animated just brings a little bit of life to this wasteland. Now, you might have noticed during that time lapse that I did attempt to build a cab on top, but having a cab on top of a crane is a bit of a problem because you generally can't see where you're picking stuff up from or dropping it off to. Cabs on cranes are usually sat down at the front here, so as the crane spins, you can actually see what you're looking at and see what you're picking up. But I decided instead of having a cab, because that was complicated and I couldn't quite get the design right, instead I was going to have some controls down here so the person operating it can see where it's going and see where it's dropping off a bit. So that's my plan for that. It works, it's just going to continue spinning and it's going to do a 180-degree turn every 1 minute. And that's all set up in this little room we've got down here, where we've got a couple of water wheels to power that, a speed control of the sequence gear shift, which is literally just turn 180 degrees, wait for a redstone signal, then turn back again, and that's just being handled by this pulse timer here, which I could put right next to that, but I like to have a bit of redstone dust there so that I can break that in order to test it without it keep triggering the sequence gear shift. And that's basically it. Now, it is a lot longer than I wanted it to be, but it still only reaches halfway across the pile of containers, which is why I want the drones. And yes, we've got another cannon set up here ready to blast in the repair workshop that I've been working on. But before we get to that, we should probably take a look at these drones. So hopping into a single player copy of the world where I've been building all of these things and doing my best not to look over in the repair shop direction because I don't want to spoil that for you. This is what I've been working on. These clattery, clanky, broken, rusty little drones that have been repurposed for the scrapyard to use. You can see they've got propellers, which fits in with my diesel guzzling, smoky, nasty, horrible, dystopian, old mechanical things that I wanted for this area. We've got a couple of little lightning rods on top, which I guess would be the data transfer, some sort of control system. We've got a little bit of red neon there to just warn people don't come near it. And then down at the bottom, we've got these claws that would go around and pick things up. But of course, this doesn't actually fly, it doesn't actually go anywhere at all, and these don't spin. And I don't think I'm going to be able to get these to spin without making this thing much bigger than it already is, which I don't want it to be because I don't want these things to be huge. But I do want to see how we can turn these into flying machines. And the way I want to do that is exactly the same way that Mr. Beardstone made his ship move about, and that is to use phantom rail. Phantom rail is invisible unless you're actually holding the tracks, and it means you can create trains that, well, appear to float around on absolutely nothing at all. So all I've got to do is turn this thing into a train, and I do have a spare one over here for testing with so I don't break my original. And I think the first thing I'm going to need to do is probably pile up a little bit, pop down a little bit of this phantom track, I guess create a station on it, put that into create new train mode, and then we're going to need to add a bogie underneath, but that bogey's going to look rather silly there like that. What we can do is actually throw on an invisible bogey, which still looks a little bit silly because you can see the top bit. So actually we're going to have the train line significantly higher up. So let's try and stick a station on here, put that into create new train mode, throw ourselves an invisible bogey under there, and now that's going to sit inside and almost look like it's like a hover system perhaps. And now hopefully if I go to create new train, no, I haven't put any seats or controls in it. Right, yeah, I forgot about that. Let's grab ourselves a seat, grab ourselves some controls, and this really needs forward and rear facing controls so that it can fly the same speed forwards as it can backwards. So I've got to try and squeeze those inside this thing somehow. And I think if I come to the top, to break a couple of these blocks and break a couple of these ones here, yeah, we should have just about enough room in there to do that. So let's pop the seat down directly on top of our bogey. Get rid of that lever and put those controls there. Get rid of that one and put those controls there. That does turn off these little redstone lamps at the front and back, but that doesn't really matter. And now we can pop the top back on using some copycat slabs to make it protrude slightly from the top of this thing. But I am going to need a way to get our driver in and out, so perhaps we actually use that design there, which looks a bit weird, but that means we can have a trapdoor to access the driver, although we could potentially do it from underneath, but that would be very tricky. I don't really know where else I could actually put a hole in this thing to get to the driver apart from on these corners. But if I smash that away, then that's going to make this look a little bit rubbish. So yeah, we're going to leave that there, and we're going to have the trapdoor at the top there. Now I should be able to turn this into a train. I can. And now if I pop myself an andesite casing down, put a hat on it, we get a conductor, and then I can lead that conductor inside of here, and he can be our driver. But there's a slightly better way to do this without having to try and fish a driver in and out of here, and that is to kill off our little drivery friend. Well, that didn't seem to work, did it? Die, sir. You can't die. Well, that's annoying. Okay, come with me. There we go. You just stay there. And instead of having that seat in there at all, we can actually throw a blaze burner in there instead, and that should work. However, when I assemble the train, as much as it does work, these blocks are now part of the train, and I don't really want those as part of the train, and that's going to make life tricky for us gluing this together. But if I throw ourselves some phantom rail down here, I can actually move this train onto that rail that we've got, and it can potentially be a train moving forwards and backwards if I give the blaze burner a schedule. And with the particle effects coming from that, that kind of works nicely for our smoky diesel generating thing. Lovely job. I just need to work out how I'm going to glue it together without these blocks. Oh, can I get rid of those and keep the rail there? I can. Okay, I've probably done that 1,000 times and just forgotten. Now when I reassemble the train, shouldn't have any of the bottom bits. It shouldn't take any of that track with it. And when I let go of the phantom rail, there we go. Okay, nice. Now we just need a couple of those in the world and a whole bunch of phantom track, which we're going to have to lay around this area in places where we want it to go, but I'm not 100% sure where that's going to be yet. But that doesn't need to stop me crafting it. So, back on the server and over in my storage system in the Nether, let's have a look at how we make phantom rail. Now, we actually want the narrow gauge phantom rail because you can have sharper corners with it, and phantom rail is basically just phantom membrane, sword, and then with a bit of iron on it and then pressed. And you get 32 for every phantom membrane. And I have been taking it upon myself to kill as many phantoms as possible during the course of this season, knowing that I'd need phantom track at some point. As a result, there are 53 of them in my storage system. And is that it? Oh, I thought I'd have a lot more than that. Okay, I clearly haven't been making that much of a point to... Oh, geez, I'm pretty sure it is for sale somewhere on the server, though. Right, anyway, let's go and make some of this. Let's go down to my workshop. And somewhere in here, I'm sure we could set up a little system to saw these, pop some iron onto them, and give them a press. And there we go! Just a couple of minutes later, we've got a tiny little system that should do exactly what I need it to do. So if I throw some iron into that barrel there, and just test this with one phantom membrane, that should, yep, create us 32 narrow phantom train track. Wonderful, let's just throw all of that in there then and get a whole bunch of them. This really shouldn't take too long at all. It did not. And we got a whole bunch, almost a single chest worth. There's a couple of creepers in my tunnel. I need to get this area sorted out and lit up and, well, stuff going on in there. Oh, geez. Anyway, next I need to figure out where we're going to be having this phantom rail, where I'm going to blast on my drones, and I also want some other drones littered around this area. Some on my scrap heap that are broken, one in the repair center, and I even want a couple of them stuck out of this wall. You see, this wall's all sort of broken down, and in my mind, some of that happened because these drones went haywire, particularly these top holes, and just sort of crashed into the wall. So I want a couple of drones stuck in the top part of the wall as well. And of course, round the scrapyard, we'll be having all sorts of broken down vehicles of things that have been sorted out, so I think a few drones scattered around in those areas would look good as well. But I don't want to just go around shoving these down willy-nilly right now, because I want to approach each area separately and make sure it all works together as a whole. So for now, I think I'm just going to have one that sort of flies over to the containers, flies around this little area here, and maybe flies around there and back again. I'm not really sure. I mean, realistically, it's not actually going to be doing anything. It's just going to make the whole area look fun. And I do have everything I need to blast these drones into existence, or at least one of them for now. And I'm going to blast the first one in around about there, and this really shouldn't take too long at all. It did not. That was very quick. Now that we've got that in, I can figure out exactly where we're going to be having our rail. And whilst I would like it facing in this direction because this is blasted in sideways, we're going to need to start with our rail in this direction. But once I've got it turned into a train, just like that, we can now move this about however we want without affecting how the blocks sit with each other. But where do we want this to go? I feel like we should perhaps start over here somewhere near the train yard. Maybe it could be fiddling with these boxes. So let's pop ourselves a bit of track there. We don't want it to fly into the container as it's coming past this way, so we should probably avoid it going up above the container height. Maybe have it come over in this direction. So let's first of all get it to fly above this fence, and then I guess sort of come round here above these containers, something a little bit like that. And then I guess we could have it maybe like swoop down over towards over here. So let's pile up a whole bunch of blocks up here. We don't want it too low down. Perhaps something a little bit like that, but I definitely don't want it to have big, long, flat, straight bits of track. I want it to look like it's hovering and bobbling about all over the place. So I need to get this to where it goes flat, which is there, and get rid of everything after that. Then we can connect to that, throw a connection onto this block here, throw a connection onto this block here, then come back down again so it comes down to here, and that should create us a little bit of a bobbly track. Bobbly? Yeah, it's a bobbly track. Shush. I know what I mean. And I'm going to continue that on around here. I'll have it come back around all the way back around here between these two buildings, and then it can join back over to get over there, which is probably going to take me a couple of minutes. And so a few minutes later, I've created a squiggly, horrible, roller coastery mess, but hopefully this should look interesting as this thing's flying around. So we're going to start here, coming round up over the containers, and then as it comes down, it's going to struggle leveling out, bounce up and down a bit, and then it's going to do a big, squirrely, horrible corner, try and level itself out as it spins round out of control here, comes down to here, and then bounce up and down a bit, go through this little gap, back over the wall, just missing the top of the fence, and then bringing itself back round over to here. Now, yes, if we actually had trains coming up and down over these tracks, it could crash into them, but this rail really is just for decoration, isn't going to be used, so it shouldn't get in the way of anything. So all I need to do now is actually get this train, or this drone, onto that track like that, and now it's going to need a schedule to actually get it to go around. In order to add a schedule, I'm going to need stations. So let's put our first station on top of this pile of junk here, and then we can just hide that down there out of the way, and we'll call that drone 1. And then I guess we need to come all the way over to the other side somewhere, perhaps round about the point where it's struggling with the curve around about here, and we'll throw that down there and then see if we can hide a station over here. We'll call that drone 2. And then on the schedule, we'll just put in that we want it to go to drone 1 and then drone 2, and we don't want it to wait or do anything. We just want it to go backwards and forwards along this line. So let's go and give it the schedule. Flip open that trap door, click on the blaze burner, and off it goes. We should see it going around this track without its top bit spinning, sadly. And there we go. It bobbles about a bit there. Yeah, it does look janky. And whilst this is kind of doing what I want it to do, it does look very static and weirdly animated. I'd really like those propellers animated, and I think this thing should be chugging out a lot more smoke than it's got. So let's just grab it when it gets to this station, take the schedule off him. I'm actually going to change this one slightly. Instead of having travel to station, we're going to have waypoint through station drone 2, and then it won't stop as it does it. And then I actually need to try and drive this somewhere close to where we need it to be so that I can make a couple of changes to it. Now we can turn it back into not a train, get rid of these blocks, craft myself a streamlined smokestack, and I guess we could probably just shove that on there. There we go. That's a lot of smoke. But how are we going to make these propellers turn while it's a train? So back over in my creative copy of the world, I want to test a couple of bits out. You see, in the past, I've made farms on top of train carriages, disassembled them at stations to allow them to run, and then reassembled them to turn them into a train so I can move them about. And quite often, if you've got power going to something that's on a train, when you assemble that train, the animated things continue to animate even though they're no longer interactable. They don't actually work, the crushing wheels won't crush, and the belts won't transfer items, but they do continue to animate. But will that work with the propellers, which are actually grey large fans from the Design and Decor add-on? Let's disassemble the train, stick one of those fans onto this system, and then when we assemble the train, the shaft in the middle continues to spin, but the actual fan does not. It becomes completely stationary. Let's disassemble the train again, turn the motor up to full speed to get this thing going very, very very quickly, and you'll see, just like the flywheel, as soon as it becomes a train, it becomes completely static except for the shaft running through the middle, which is a shame because I really wanted them spinning. So even if I was to connect these fans through gearboxes and stuff inside of this, because once this becomes a train, it becomes a contraption, those are no longer going to continue to spin. So the only way we could make this look like it was actually flying would be to swap them out for something else that looked like propellers, or to completely change the design in this and make it look like it had thrusters or something holding it up. And I don't want to add thrusters and change the design. I really like the design. So what else could we add on that looks like a propeller? And looking through the list of all of the different create things that might work and might attach to this, the only thing I can really come up with are these cogwheels, which when they spin fast enough could look like propellers. So let's come over to this drone, which we're using to turn into a train, swap these out for these large cogwheels, use some creative motors to get them all spinning very, very quickly, and then assemble that into a train. They are going to continue to spin, which is absolutely wonderful, but they don't really look much like propellers. I suppose it's better than what we had before, perhaps. But do they continue to spin after I log out and log in again? They do. Okay, well that's a good sign. So I guess we could have these. Crushing wheels could look a little bit better, but I think they're a bit bulky. So I think we're going to have to go with some form of large cog and just use our imaginations. So back on the server, I've decided for the ones we're going to have moving, we're going to have these large dark metal cogwheels, and I've hooked these up to power to get them spinning so that when we turn this into a train, they'll continue to spin, but we'll stick to using these fans for anything that's going to be static, i.e. the ones that have crashed into the wall and the ones that are going to be in our repair shop. That way, hopefully, it will kind of look like it's just one of these that's spinning so fast you can't see it spinning. Right, anyway, let's turn this back into a train. This still spinning. Let's stick it back on the track. Just like that. Let's give the blaze burner his schedule, close the trapdoor, and then just watch this as it goes round, ideally without the phantom track in my pocket. And then we need to determine, is it going too slow or too quickly? I don't know if it wants to go a little bit slower than it is doing, but I kind of like the speed, to be honest, because it kind of looks like it's got purpose and it's doing what it needs to do. I'm not 100% sure I like the bumping up and down on the track, but I kind of like the fact that it does look a little bit crazy. It does look a little bit out of control, and it is doing all of the things that I did want it to do, apart from actually picking up or carrying anything. But it can't, because it's a train, so it's not going to be able to do that, although we could have another one flying around that's actually holding something so we can see that they are supposed to. Or we could in fact just put something between this one's pincers to carry around, but I don't know what to throw into there, so if you've got any ideas, let me know in the comments and I'll stick it in for the next episode. Anyway, now that we've got this little fellow running around, I think it's about time we threw in a few more, got them stuck into the walls, and built my little repair workshop that I've been working on. Now, before we hop into the time-lapse, I want to talk about how we're going to get these things stuck into the wall without them making a big mess of the walls. And in the last episode, I showed you how we could use a schematic to actually schematic something into the world next to this big old rubbish pile, and then use a mechanical bearing and a valve in order to change the position of it and make it look like it's stuck into it. However, in doing that, it can actually end up gluing a whole bunch of the blocks you don't want to attaching to it, and it still kind of looks like it's half stuck out. So that's not the method I'm going to use for these drones. Back on the server, what I'm actually going to do is blast the next drone into existence. Just like that, we're going to get rid of these for now because we don't actually want it spinning. We're going to get rid of the blaze burner because we don't want him in there. We also only need one set of controls, and we're going to need a seat. I'm also going to turn these levers off to turn the little redstone badges on the side off so that this thing doesn't look like it's got power once it's stuck in the wall. And then we're just going to assemble it as a train, and we'll call it Crash Drone 01. And now all we need to do is get it exactly where we want it to be. In order to do that, I'm going to have to lay a whole bunch of track over to near where we're going to have this thing. So let's just put a couple of blocks there, get this thing over here. Now this is just temporary track. It doesn't matter what it looks like. And then when we come over here, what I'm going to do is get rid of a whole bunch of this mesh fence that's blocking up this hole. Come over behind this thing, and I want to make some track that's going up at an angle through this hole. Something a little bit like that. And that way, we get a bit of a curve there. Now, I actually want this on a 45-degree angle, which you can do if you place them next to a block there, but I don't know if you can do that on a 45-degree angle. In fact, I don't think that's even possible, which is a bit of a shame, but we're going to try just here. I put that there, it won't allow me to put it up in that corner. That's a bit annoying. Oh well. What we can then do is get inside of our train, drive it over towards that bit of track we've just placed down, and then that should mean it's close enough to grab it with the wrench and then stick it onto this bit of track here. And now we just need to angle it and organize it so it looks like it's busted into the wall. So getting back in, let's get the controls. I'm in a wall. That's not ideal for me. And I guess maybe something like that could work. Now if we get rid of all of these blocks, and get rid of all of the track that we don't need anymore, it's derailed, which is absolutely fine. That's just going to stay there now. And when we let go of the phantom tracks, that just looks like it's buried itself into the wall. We need to do a little bit maybe with some copycat byte blocks to just make it look like it's a bit more embedded, but that works. We've now got a drone stuck in the wall. Perfect. So I'm going to probably fiddle with that a little bit more. And while I do that, let's roll the time lapse of me designing the repair center that's going to be going over there. And here it is, Rusty's Repair Shop, which, he's not very good at making signs, apparently, this Rusty fellow. Let's hope his work is a little bit better than his sign-making skills. Oh, jeez, the drone's flying past. Inside this workshop, we have another drone that is being workshopped, one that's been recovered from the scrap heap, ready to go out and do some work. And of course, this is Rusty's workshop, where he lives and works. We've got a little tool bench here with all the things he could need, including little toolboxes. And we've got access up to all of the various different elements of this build. If we go up this step ladder here, we can get to the top area where you can continue working on the drones. And if we continue round over here, nope, gone the wrong way. Oh, jeez. If we continue round over in this direction, we can get up a second set of stairs all the way up to Rusty's bedroom. What a lovely little bedroom he's got with his little bed with some wood stuck to it. Out here we've got a little bit of a balcony where Rusty can have a look at and see what's going on in the scrap area, see if there's anything worth bringing over and repairing. And then back down these stairs and around this drone we can get through to the top section of his little workshop, which is just through this door again with another little balcony just here. And then we've got this sort of storage area to the top which leads you back down the stairs into the workshop. And that's basically it for the inside of the building. For the main part of the build, I've used a lot of the andesite, zinc and iron sheet metals along with some spruce wood to make this build feel cobbled together from materials that might have been found in this scrap site. We've got some more little boilers and tanks and things around the outside. I'm also missing a couple of little blocks over here just to make that stick out a bit more. And around this side we've just got a bunch of junk that's laid down on the floor as well. And of course the top of the building, well, looks exactly the same as the bottom, except we've got these janky sort of sloped, well, this one's wood and this one's tin roof, and I think it's great. I think it's come out really nicely. It does exactly what I want it to do. This building does feel a little bit square, but I wanted it to be rough and ready as if it's been just thrown together from the scrap materials found round here. And speaking of the scrap materials found round here, of course, we've got our drone that's stuck in the wall over there. And as we head over there, you should hopefully be able to see that I've made a bit of a mess down here with some blocks, and I've used the copycat byte blocks to just make it feel a little bit more embedded into the wall, like it's a little bit more stuck there, and I think that works great. Although, again, I've missed one block. There we go. So this wasteland is coming together slowly. We've got little bits of detail here and there. The train area is just about finished with its big old crane and the drone that flies around. And we've got the repair center as well, and this very, very smoky drone flying around. But there's still a whole bunch more to do. Of course, we've got our big dump pile over there that's going to be existing. We've got all of these areas to fill out with all of the junk and stuff that's going to be in those. And of course, we've got to build our smeltery recycling center, our scrap crane, which will be a little bit like that one, but more of a smaller magnet crane for picking up the junk from the junk pile and bringing it over to these areas. And of course, we've got the electrical substation over here to do, the outdoor marketplacey food stand bit, and a whole bunch of stuff to throw around here as well. So this build is by no means over, but I'm going to have to cut this one short because I'm going on holiday very soon and I need to get as many videos prepped as possible.